Imagine this. A skinny teenager in a long, dark coat steps into the Providence courtroom. And instead of documents, he's holding a deck of tarot cards. It's early morning, the kind of quiet session where nothing dramatic ever happens. Judge Caprio reviews small infractions with his usual calm rhythm. Parking violations, late-night noise complaints, an improper turn caught on camera. People shuffle papers, check their phones, wait for their name to be called. Routine hangs in the air like a slow metronome. Then the courtroom door slams open. Every head lifts. The teenager doesn't walk to the microphone. Instead, he pauses in front of the courtroom camera as if he's about to go live on TikTok. His backpack is covered with patches. Tarot advisor, energy healer, indigo kid. A few people exchange looks. A man in the back tries not to laugh. An older woman folds her arms, uneasy. He's clearly not here to pay a simple fine. The boy walks forward with an eerie kind of certainty. His steps are soft but deliberate, like he's rehearsed this moment. His deck of cards hangs loosely in his hand, the edges worn from constant use. Not a toy. Something he's lived with. Judge Caprio glances up, expecting the usual explanation. But the boy speaks first. "I do not acknowledge your citation," he says, voice trembling with conviction. "I'm protected by forces you don't control." The room stiffens. Even the judge pauses, eyebrows raised just slightly, just enough to show he wasn't expecting that. Then the teenager places a card on the podium in front of the judge. The image stares up. The tower. Someone in the gallery whispers, "Oh no, that's the kid who threatened cops with curses online." A janitor in her 60s clucks her tongue softly. She's seen too many odd things in this city to dismiss him entirely. The teenager's voice sharpens. "I've prepared an energetic shield. Anyone who tries to interfere with my case will face a karmic recoil." A few people smirk, but others shift uncomfortably. Older Americans, especially, tense at anything that sounds like dark spiritual talk. One man pulls his jacket closer. Another murmurs a prayer under his breath. Then comes the line that freezes the room. "If you try to judge me," the boy says, staring directly at Caprio, "I will curse you. You and your entire bloodline." Silence drops hard. The judge doesn't flinch. No sarcasm, no raised voice, just a slow inhale as he studies the trembling hands behind the boy's theatrics. The calmness in Caprio's expression creates a strange contrast, like still water beside a storm. He leans slightly forward. The courtroom waits, breath held. The tower card lies between them like a threat or a plea. The boy stands motionless, waiting for the judge to react. But something in his stance betrays him. A slight tightening of his shoulders. A shallow breath. The kind of tension that doesn't belong to someone truly fearless. Judge Caprio shifts his attention to the paperwork in front of him. "State your name for the record," he says gently. A simple question. Yet the teenager hesitates. Just 1 second. But enough. Nolan," he finally mutters. "Nolan Graves." He looks older online. But here, in the bright courtroom lighting, he's unmistakably 17. Thin wrists, uneven posture, a face trying to appear defiant, but revealing cracks around the edges. The judge scans the file. "Nolan, it says here your parents live on Hope Street. Is that still your address?" Another pause. His jaw clenches. "Yes, for now." A woman in the far row flinches at those two words. She's in her 40s, dressed plainly, her hands balled around a tissue she hasn't used. Her posture is rigid, her gaze pinned to the floor. When Nolan glances her way, he looks straight through her. Deliberately, almost theatrically, as if she's a stranger. But she isn't. Judge Caprio sees it instantly. The file continues. Mother, social services worker. Father, paramedic, Army veteran, a respected family in the neighborhood. Yet the boy in front of him radiates distance, isolation, a carefully assembled persona meant to protect something much softer underneath. You got this citation, the judge continues, for performing tarot readings outside the public library. Nolan straightens, ready to deliver a rehearsed speech. It wasn't performing. It's my calling. They accused me because they fear what I reveal. Caprio closes the file with a soft thud. This isn't your first incident, is it? Nolan stiffens. His fingers clench the deck, shuffling its cards in restless motions. Something flashes across his face. Panic, quickly masked by arrogance. Across the room, his mother whispers, barely audible, "Please, don't start this again." Her voice cracks with exhaustion, not anger. The kind of fatigue that comes from years of trying to pull a child back from a ledge he insists is a bridge. Nolan's neck tightens. "Don't talk for me," he snaps without looking at her. Some people in the room avert their eyes. There's something deeply uncomfortable in watching a child talk to a parent that way, especially to a mother who looks like she hasn't slept properly in months. Judge Caprio doesn't scold him. Instead, he studies the boy with quiet concentration. "Nolan," he asks, "you use these cards, but have you ever tried simply explaining to people why you feel the need to act this way?" The question lands like a stone dropped into still water. Nolan blinks, caught off guard. His lips part slightly, as if he wants to answer, but something stops him. The persona he built so carefully wavers. The room senses it. He grips the deck tighter. "My readings speak. For me," he says, but the conviction is gone. Judge Caprio tilts his head. "Do they? Because right now it seems like you're hiding behind them." For a moment, Nolan looks nothing like a mystic, nothing like a self-proclaimed seer. Just a kid, cornered by honesty he wasn't prepared for. His mother's hands tremble. The judge's voice remains calm, steady, inviting truth rather than forcing it. This is the first hairline fracture in Nolan's armor. Small, but undeniable. And everyone in the room feels it. Judge Caprio flips to the incident summary, his reading glasses sliding slightly down his nose as he studies the page. Something in the document makes him pause. "Nolan," he says slowly, "the date of your citation. Do you remember where you were that afternoon?" Nolan lifts his chin. "Outside the library, offering guidance." The judge nods. "That was the day of the Veterans Charity event. You were stationed right at the entrance." A low ripple goes through the courtroom. Nolan presses his lips into a thin line, suddenly restless. "They needed clarity. I was trying to help." Caprio lifts an eyebrow. "Several people reported that you frightened them with what you called prophecies." Nolan's voice breaks into something raw. "They were scared of the truth. Everyone is. Nobody wants to hear what I see." It doesn't sound like bravado, more like desperation leaking through a crack he can't seal fast enough. The judge notices. So does the gallery. He continues gently, but with precision. "One witness mentioned you seemed especially distressed after one particular man spoke to you. A veteran. Someone older." Nolan tenses. "That's irrelevant." The judge doesn't let it go. "Is it true," he asks, "that you knew him before that day?" A cold stillness falls over the room. Nolan's face drains of color. He doesn't answer. From the side row, his mother inhales sharply, as if bracing for impact. She opens her mouth to speak, but Nolan cuts her off with a sharp, "Stop." His voice cracks on the last letter. For the first time, his hands shake. The tarot deck, once a symbol of control, is now an anchor he's gripping too tightly. A man in the front row shifts his weight, leaning forward on a metal crutch. His weathered eyes lock onto Nolan. "I remember you," he says quietly. The entire room turns toward him. His tone isn't accusing, just heavy with memory and recognition. Nolan's throat moves in a swallow he can't hide. Judge Caprio taps a button on the monitor. "There's also a video attached to your file," he says. A small screen lights up. Grainy footage plays. Nolan outside the event, talking animatedly to a passerby. His gestures are sharp, frantic. The audio is muffled, just enough to leave doubt. Was he threatening? Warning? Pleading? It's impossible to tell. That ambiguity hangs like fog. "This video raises questions," the judge says carefully. "It doesn't clearly show intent." Nolan's gaze stays on the screen, transfixed, haunted. "It wasn't a threat," he whispers. His voice is softer than anyone's heard yet. "It was a warning." He looks as if he's about to reveal something important, something he's guarded fiercely. Before he can continue, his mother speaks, barely audible but carrying immense weight. "Tell him about that night, Nolan." A collective intake of breath sweeps the courtroom. Nolan freezes. His eyes widen, not in anger this time, but fear. Real, unmistakable fear. The kind that exposes everything he's been holding together with ritual, bravado, and cards. The judge leans back slightly, not pushing, simply watching the boy unravel on his own terms. The gallery sits in utter silence. Whatever that night was, everyone understands one thing. This case isn't about tarot anymore. It's about something far deeper and far more painful. The judge turns slightly toward the woman in the gallery. "Ma'am," he says gently, "if you're able, please explain what you meant by that night." Her fingers tighten around the crumpled tissue. She looks at her son, searching his face for permission he refuses to give. His eyes dart away, but the fear in them is unmistakable. She exhales, a long, tired breath. "It was the night he ran," she says quietly. The room leans in. She speaks with the careful restraint of someone who has repeated this story too many times in her mind, never aloud. Nolan and his father argued. It wasn't like their usual disagreements. Something in him snapped. Her voice falters. His father tried to calm him down, but Nolan kept insisting he saw danger in the cards. He said he could feel something coming. Nolan shuts his eyes, jaw trembling. She continues, steady but breaking. He stormed out. His father chased after him. Minutes later, he collapsed. A heart episode. The paramedics said the stress triggered it. A gasp whispers through the courtroom. Nolan's breath comes quick and shallow now. The persona of the confident young mystic dissolves, leaving behind a shaken teen who looks much smaller in his oversized coat. Judge Caprio turns toward the veteran in the front row. "Sir," he says softly, "you reacted earlier. Do you know this family?" The veteran nods once. "I was on that call," he says, voice rough but compassionate. "I responded when his father went down." He looks directly at Nolan. "You were there, kid. You remember?" Nolan's lips tremble. "I tried to warn him," he whispers. "He wouldn't listen. I told him the cards said something awful was coming." The veteran leans forward on his crutch. "He didn't collapse because of a prediction, son. He collapsed because he loved you, and he was terrified you'd get hurt." The courtroom stays utterly still. Nolan swallows hard. The cards in his hand begin to slip, edges brushing the floor. He doesn't notice. His mother lifts a trembling hand toward him, not touching, just hovering. "You changed after that night," she says. You locked yourself in your room for weeks. You wouldn't speak. Then, you started using the cards for everything. You said they were the only thing that wouldn't lie to you. The judge lets silence settle before speaking. Nolan, he asks softly, when you read cards for strangers, what are you actually trying to protect? A tear wells in Nolan's eye, not falling, simply clinging there like it's afraid to reveal too much. He whispers, I couldn't save him. So I thought, maybe I could save someone else. The gallery shifts, empathy replacing earlier discomfort. Judge Caprio nods slowly, not encouraging the theatrics, not indulging the mysticism, but acknowledging the pain beneath it. You weren't responsible for your father's medical condition, the judge says, but you were a child trying to make sense of something overwhelming. And you chose the only language you felt you had. Nolan looks up, meeting the judge's eyes for the first time without defiance. His mother's breath catches. The tarot deck, his shield, his identity, hangs loosely from his fingers now, forgotten for the moment. The courtroom, once skeptical, now sees him clearly. Not a mystic, not a threat, but a wounded kid who mistook fear for prophecy and guilt for destiny. The air in the courtroom feels different now, heavier but softer. Even those who chuckled earlier sit quietly, watching the boy who once threatened curses now struggle to hold himself together. Judge Caprio folds his hands on the bench. Nolan, he asks with deliberate calm, were you trying to intimidate those people at the veterans event? Or were you trying to warn them? The question hangs in the air, long enough that the room forgets to breathe. Nolan's shoulders sag, as if something inside finally gives way. I thought if I could protect someone else from danger, he murmurs, maybe it would make up for what I couldn't do for my dad. No theatrics, no mystical tone, just grief wrapped in a 17-year-old's voice. A woman in the second row wipes her eyes. Someone whispers, poor kid, barely audible. Nolan presses on, the words unspooling like a confession he never meant to share. I know people think I'm strange. I know shouting about energy outside a charity event wasn't right. I scared them. I get that now. He swallows, hands trembling. And what I said to you, Judge, about curses, that wasn't real. I didn't know how to fight without pretending I was stronger than I felt. He lowers his gaze, ashamed rather than defensive. The courtroom is silent, so quiet one could hear the fabric of his coat rustle. Then the veteran rises slowly, leaning on his crutch. His voice carries the wear of service and years, but it holds something unexpectedly gentle. Judge, he says, this boy doesn't need punishment. He needs help, real help. Coming from a man who has seen both trauma and truth, the statement lands heavily. Nolan's mother looks at the veteran as though he's given her something she thought she'd lost. Hope. She turns to the judge, her voice thin but steady. I've already lost my husband. I can't lose my son, too. Please, don't let him fall through the cracks. Judge Caprio studies Nolan for a long moment, long enough for the boy to feel the weight of being truly seen. Nolan, the judge finally says, your actions created fear. But fear doesn't make someone beyond reach. It makes them human. The judge straightens the paperwork before him. I'm dismissing the fine. A light murmur flows through the room. But, he continues, I'm not letting you walk out without accountability. You're going to complete a youth mental health program, 25 hours of community work at the Veterans Support Center. And you'll post, on the same platform where you make your predictions, a message explaining that spiritual practices don't replace real assistance. Nolan raises his head, confusion flickering with something like relief. This isn't punishment, the judge adds. It's direction. His mother covers her mouth to stifle a sob, not dramatic, just deeply human. The veteran nods in approval. The judge's final words settle over Nolan like a bridge being extended, not a door being closed. I want those you frightened to meet the young man behind the cards, and I want you to meet them. They're stronger than you think. And so are you. The room holds its breath as Nolan absorbs the first real lifeline he's been offered in a long time. The session is nearly over. People begin gathering their things, but no one fully rises. Something in the room urges them to stay just a moment longer, as if the story hasn't finished its arc. Nolan gathers his cards, movements slow and unsteady. The coat that once made him appear mysterious now seems too big for him, hanging awkwardly off his narrow frame. He turns to leave, but pauses. His back straightens slightly, enough to show hesitation, not defiance. He looks at the judge. Judge Caprio. His voice is small, uncertain. Are you really not afraid of what I do? It isn't a challenge. It's a plea for clarity, maybe even connection. His question echoes softly through the room, brushing against every listening ear. The judge's answer arrives with a calm warmth that settles the tension like dust drifting to the floor. Son, he says gently, your cards don't frighten me. What frightens me is when young people believe they're alone in the world. You're not alone. Not here. Not anymore. The room freezes, not from shock, but from recognition of a truth spoken plainly, without judgment. Nolan's breath catches. Something inside him shifts, untangling from the knots he's held for years. His mother covers her face with both hands, not crying loud, just releasing a weight she's carried in silence. The veteran gives Nolan a steady, approving nod, as if granting permission to begin again. Nolan finally turns to leave, but as he steps back, one card slips from the deck and falls to the floor with a soft flutter. He stops, startled. Judge Caprio bends down, not hurriedly, not ceremonially, just with quiet dignity, and picks it up. He turns it over. The sun, a symbol of clarity, renewal, a fresh start. Nolan's eyes widen slightly, not in mystical awe, but in something gentler, hope, tentative and trembling. Maybe it's a sign, he says in a hushed voice. The judge smiles, just a crease at the corner of his mouth, the kind of expression older Americans recognize instantly as understanding rather than amusement. Maybe, he says, but the signs that matter most aren't printed on cards. They're the people who refuse to give up on you. He extends the card. Nolan takes it with both hands, holding it as carefully as if it might break. A long, natural silence blankets the courtroom. No one rushes to fill it. Then the bailiff's voice, quiet but firm. All rise. Chairs slide back. The rustle of coats. A shuffle of footsteps. Ordinary sounds. But now they carry the echo of something earned. Nolan slips the sun card into the center of his deck, presses it flat with his thumb, and glances once more at the space where the judge sat moments earlier. Not for guidance, not for validation, but with the recognition that this room, this morning, might be the point where his life bends toward something brighter. He walks toward the exit, shoulders still uncertain, but no longer caving inward. As the door closes behind him, the lingering silence feels less like an ending and more like a beginning, one shaped not by fate and not by cards, but by the people who stepped in when he finally stopped pretending he didn't need them.